Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream and your daily transfer update. As always, guys, there's plenty to get stuck into. We've got Chelsea leading the race with Moises Caicedo, according to Fabrizio Romano. We've got Declan Rice, the latest surrounding his future after West Ham chairman confirmed that he will be leaving the club this summer. We've got Real Madrid saying that Kai Havertz is too expensive. The latest on Mason Mount as well, the massive gap in valuations between Chelsea and Manchester United for the player. And we've also got Todd Boehly and the owner's statement to the fans as well that dropped this morning. So there's plenty to get into, guys. As always, make sure you smash the like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and let's get straight into it. As you can see, delighted to be joined by Nina. Nina, thank you for coming. As always, really appreciate it. Let's get straight into things then. We're going to go with Moises Caicedo first. Obviously, Chelsea need midfield options desperately. I probably have now not got this one. Oh, I've got it here. Right. Yeah, basically from Fabrizio. So I'm waiting for important updates once clubs will attack the situation. Caicedo has not agreed personal terms with any club. Chelsea are convinced and consider him the perfect player for their idea. Sources I spoke to say price is about 70 to 80 million, no more than this. Chelsea leading the race at the moment. Let's see how Arsenal will react in the next few weeks. And Man United are also informed on the situation. So we know that we need midfielders, we need them quickly. Liverpool signed Alexis McAllister for £35 million. We missed out on Manuel Ugarte to PSG. What are your thoughts on Moises Caicedo? Does it excite you? Do you think it's right? Is this the deal we should be going for?
Hi, thanks for having me, first of all. Yes, I have already expressed my keenness on Caicedo. I've enjoyed watching him this season. I think he fits in perfectly to our midfield. I think he'll complement Enzo as well perfectly. He's very physical, versatile. He seems quick as well, which is exactly what we are looking for. In terms of the pricing there, I think that may be a little bit of a worry. I think because we are quite desperate as well, I think that we might go a bit too overboard with it in terms of what we might offer for him. But again, I think he's perfect. So I would suggest that we do sign him. Obviously, it's a little bit strange that McAllister went off for 35 and he's obviously rated at 70, 80. So you've got that question there. Why do Liverpool get to sign McAllister for 35? But hey, then that's just another question.
No, because I think McAllister had a release clause of 35 in his contract, which is just unfortunate for us. But in terms of Caicedo, look, 70, 80 million pounds, if it is to be believed that, I mean, I've spoken to people on the channel that said, you know, oh, well, they've spoken to guys that saying actually it could be closer to 100 million, but there is a price, there is a figure in the Caicedo contract that, you know, if that comes in, then he would be allowed to leave. I don't think there's any way that, you know, he would have stayed in January, signed the new contract without assurances that he would be allowed to leave in the summer. Now, of course, 70 to 80 million pounds would be I think that'd be a great price for Moises Caicedo. You're looking at someone that's 21 years of age, got his best years ahead of him, Premier League proven, can dominate midfield, and could be in that midfield for the next 10 years. So if it was to be 80 million pounds, then I think there's a lot worse ways that you could spend 80 million than to bring in Moises Caicedo. For sure. But ultimately as well, though, it's a bit embarrassing. We're going back knocking on Brighton's door again. Now, I know, obviously, we have given them a lot of money. We've given them money for Cucurella. We've given them money for Graham Potter. We've taken Paul Winstanley from them as well on a director level. And we're going to go back and knock on the door again and say, can we have another guy? Which I don't know if it's not embarrassing, but because Brighton do scout very well, they do produce very good players, or they find good players and develop them very well. And Caicedo is another one of those. But I don't know. I mean, I think this is going to be really tricky to do because Brighton want Levi Colwill as well. Very highly rated at Chelsea. Had a season on loan there last season as part of the deal for Cucurella. He went on loan. Brighton wanted him permanently, but the club insisted, look, we're not signing him. We're not letting him go permanently. He's firmly part of the plans going forward. Pochettino wants to use him. If we had to involve Levi Colwill in a deal in order to get Caicedo, would you be on board with that?
See, that's a tricky one because I think Levi Colwill will be integral. I think he's exactly Poch's player and he looks to be very fitting for our future plans in terms of looking young, looking well. But then you do have the question, how desperate are we as well? I think Brighton do kind of like doing business with us. I mean, they got 65 million for Cucurella, so I think they're not really going to be stressed there. But I personally would prefer to keep Colwill because he is just such a vital player moving forward. So I I don't know if I would push for more potentially, but then again, I'd take him off the table and I'd just keep him for us. I don't think we can afford to lose a player like Colwill right now, especially moving forwards. I think he's crucial for us next season.
But how crucial? Like, I like Levi Colwill. I think he's a top centre half. But what you could counter that with, I'm not sure if I believe this or not, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway, is that, and guys in the chat, you can let us know your thoughts, is that would signing Moises Caicedo, that's going to be more beneficial for Chelsea than having Levi Colwill next season, in terms of the fact that we desperately need midfielders. At centre-back, we've got 6 centre-backs at the moment. We've got, obviously, if Colwill stays, we've got Colwill, Silva, Fofana, Badiashile, Chalobah, and Koulibaly. If we're going to employ a back 4, which I think we will under Pochettino, and we're playing once a week, there's going to be minimal rotation, particularly in that particularly in that back line. You're not going to rotate the centre-back pairing very often. You really want continuity there. And is Colwill really going to go straight into the starting lineup at Chelsea? I don't know. You'd imagine it would be him and Badiashile fighting for that left-sided centre-back spot, and then you'd have Silva and Fofana on the other side, and obviously Chalobah in the mix as well. Koulibaly, who I think we should probably get rid of. But then, unless Colwell's going to come in and he's going to start and he's going to make a big impact, which, yeah, of course he could do. I think if we're desperate for Caicedo, so if the only way to get Caicedo is to use Levi Colwill, I wouldn't want to lose him permanently. But if it meant him going on loan for another season, Thiago Silva probably going to be his last season next season, and then Colwill can come in after having another season's experience in the Premier League, where he would play probably every week for Brighton. He'd be playing Europa League football as well, and we're more desperate, in my opinion, for a centre midfielder than we are to keep another centre back. That's just how I see it. But I don't know. People are going to have different opinions on it. But we need to get this deal done, because otherwise we're in big trouble. I've always maintained we have to get one of Caicedo or Rice. I mean, would you rather just us spend the money and keep Colwill?
I see your point. But then when you look at it on the flip side, we also are talking about aging centre-backs there as well. I do get the point of view that if we can loan him for another season, bring him back when he's in obviously a much better player, loads more experience up his sleeve, then that's fantastic there. But obviously, potentially, I think there's talks around Chalobah leaving as well. I would like to sell Koulibaly as well. I don't think Koulibaly has a place in Chelsea, for me personally, next season anyway. How much money we get off him, I don't know. But for me, it's just more of a case of getting rid rather than anything else. But yeah, no, I know what you mean about Caicedo and us being desperate for him. I think if this falls through, then I think we need to turn and ask some big questions here, because like, how close do we keep coming to deals like such, signing midfielders, and then something goes wrong? Obviously, yeah, okay, Ugarte wasn't the only one on the table. It wasn't the end of the world when that dropped through. But I feel like with Caicedo, it's a little bit more different. And now if we lose this as well, then I think we're asking some questions. Caicedo literally ticks every single box. He fits the character profiles that we're looking for next season, in terms of talent, in terms of work rate, in terms of ability and everything. He's Prem proven as well. So you're not really risking bringing in a midfielder from another league. So you have that to overcome as well as a hurdle. So I think, yeah, Caicedo is top priority right now. I think we need to sign a midfielder now. But potentially, yeah, if we strive, if Brighton come out and say, look, right, this is exactly what we're offering for you, we want to keep Colwill now, Caicedo will give to you, then maybe that looks a little bit better. I see your point in Colwill not being a priority. However, my worry with Colwill is losing him kind of as a whole. I think he looks quite happy at Brighton as well. I think he came out and said that he almost forgot that he is a Chelsea player. You obviously risk that as well. You risk kind of losing that player wanting to obviously build it at Chelsea as well. So you've got that there as well. There's quite a few factors to look at. But then again, I do appreciate that Caicedo is at the top of the to-do list, and I would be very disappointed if we look so close now, we're in the supposed leading race for him, and suddenly something goes wrong, it drops through, and then we're left with empty hands again, and then we're looking left and right for other options. So yeah, I think I do get what you mean in terms of Caicedo being top priority. So I get that from that aspect, yes. But also equally, I worry that Colwill, we might lose him as a whole in terms of kind of him wanting to come to Chelsea, still being able to progress him as a player, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I don't know what it would mean for sort of the academy that, you know, if Levi Colwill, who's thought of as one of the best prospects coming through the academy, you know, he's likened to I swear I've heard this somewhere. Like people talk about him sort of in the same breath as John Terry in terms of like how good this guy is that's coming through. Now, of course, not every single player that comes through the academy is gonna be a success. They're not all gonna make it. It just doesn't work like that. And for so long it was just JT from the academy. No one else came through for years and years and years. And now we've been a bit more blessed. We've obviously had Ruben playing in the first team, Hudson-Odoi, Chalobah, Reece James, Mount. To name 5 that have been a part of the first team squad and have majorly contributed, over the past few years. So there is a pathway there. And if you're good enough, you will play. So I don't know if we have to convince Colwell that there's a pathway there. Of course, we're going to have to sort of give him assurances that, look, if you stay here, yes, I know we've got, 5 other centre-backs. One of those is going to go. 2 could potentially go. I think we need 5 centre-backs just in case anyone gets injured, just, rotation purposes potentially. And if you want to go to a 3 in certain games or at any point during a match, then I think it's important to have those numbers available. But then, of course, you've still got Cucurella who could drop into a 3 as well. So do we really need 6 centre-backs? I think we need 5 potentially, or we could have 4 and use Cucurella as an emergency one. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I don't know what sort of message it would send if we did get rid of Levi Colwell. I think a lot of people wouldn't be happy with it. But then we need. I do just think we need Caicedo more than we need Levi Colwell. But ultimately, it is a tricky one, to be perfectly honest. But I mean, I'm really torn on it. But I think it's going to be tough. And how worried are you by? I know, like we sort of joke about Arsenal and that, but how worried are you about Arsenal in the mix for this as well? Just purely on a fact that they tried to get Caicedo in January, had 2 bids turned down. I think the biggest one was 70 million quid. They're favourites of Declan Rice, which is a massive problem. And I think they believe, from what I've been reading, that they can potentially get both these guys. Now, that's going to be difficult. It's going to require a lot of money. I think if Arsenal are serious as a football club and they want to push on from last season's runners-up spot, then they need to spend big to maintain that. How much of a worry is it that they could get both? Because they're leading the race for Rice, and they've definitely got a strong interest in Caicedo as well. And I'd imagine that Brighton would probably rather do business with Arsenal than Chelsea, just because of everything that's happened over the last year or so between the 2 clubs.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we have reason to be worried, especially because Caicedo is a young player. He's not had kind of a glimpse of like European football. Obviously, that's on the table with Arsenal, and he might be attracted to that. As a young player, those are things that kind of sway your head. If more money is put on the table as well for that, then I do see his head turning. I don't exactly see him absolutely wanting to come to Chelsea at any cost. So you do risk that there. I don't think there's an actual demonstrated kind of attitude from Caicedo that he wants to come to Chelsea, is there? Unless not to my knowledge. But yeah, I do worry that that's going to be a thing. And if they do get both, then that's just not going to be good. I know we joke about it, and we were happy that we beat Madrid for the race against Arsenal. But Rice and Caicedo in Arsenal's midfield,
that's a joke.
That's a joke. And especially because Rice is someone that I wanted at Chelsea for just the longest time ever. And of course, I mean, he's a glamorous name. It's a glamorous midfielder you're getting there. So there's obviously a price to pay for him. And I understand that at times, obviously, the fee was just far too extortionate. It wasn't quite right. And obviously, we're nowhere near being in any talks with Rice at all. So Caicedo obviously remains our priority. So you're right. I think this is exactly why we need to make it our top priority. And if it means putting Colwell on the table for that, then I think it's an absolute must. Now that you've said that, it almost sways me more, because what are we competing against? We're competing against a club that will probably get Rice as well, are playing Champions League football next season. Caicedo is a player that obviously is looking to do that. So you've kind of got yourself that pickle there. And I hope we're going to be smart and realize that, because at the end of the day, Caicedo is an absolute must. And like I said, if this falls through and Arsenal ends up with both, then we've shot ourselves in the foot massively.
Yeah, that could be a problem. But I mean, look, ultimately, like, people panic so much when they say, oh, yeah, this deal falls through. Suddenly Arsenal are favourites for XYZ player. What are Chelsea doing? Like, the window's not even fucking open yet. Like, it's open. It's open on the 14th. It's open next Wednesday. The window officially opens. And yes, you want to get business done. And yes, you can get business done and then officially announce signings once the window's opened and whatnot. But like, people need to relax a little bit. Yeah, yes, we need to get a move on. Yes, yeah, yes, we need to Yes, we need to get deals done. Yes, we need to get players out. Yes, we've got to raise 100 million by the end of this month. Like, yeah, of course, we know we've got work to do, but I do trust the people at the club. And, yes, they've made a lot of mistakes, but in terms of recruitment and the way they operate in a transfer market, I actually think they've done pretty well. And, it's mixed reports on the real reasons as to why we walked away from the Agate deal, whether it was wages, whether it was because we tried to invest in Sporting a minority share. I don't really know what the scenario was there, but ultimately walked away from it. And obviously there are other targets there, but if you're walking away for whatever the reasons are from Agate, then you have to make sure that you then get the next guy in line, or because we need to be like, there'll be a list of names, like 3, 4, 5 names long. Agate was on there, Caicedo, Lavia, Thuram, Kone. That's like 5 names. There could be some others somewhere, right? And you think you want to be getting your first. You can't get your first target every time, but you want to be getting. You want to be shopping on the top 2. Once you start, if you miss out on your top 2 and you're going 3rd and 4th, that's when it becomes a problem. So if Caicedo is a number 1 target and we were to miss out, yeah, that would be pretty tough. But I'm not sure. I mean, Arsenal, it would be a concern. We just need to make sure we don't get left behind. And that's the really important thing, because the transfer window, like, it's mad to see this many teams doing so much business or trying to get business done this early, like even before the window's open. You see Liverpool get McAllister. You look at Bellingham's gone to Real Madrid already. Messi's obviously signed for Inter Miami. These are big deals that are happening before the transfer window is actually even officially open. So we do need to get a move on. Like, the guys aren't stupid. They do know what they're doing. But at the same time, there's always that worry that Brighton are going to dig their heels in and make this hard. And for Arsenal, it's a lot easier for them. But maybe for Chelsea, it could be easier, because Arsenal are going to have to offer at least 70 million, because they offered 70 million in January. Caicedo subsequently signed a new contract. So they're going to have to offer more than 70 million pounds as a starting point, whereas we offered 55 million verbally in January. That got turned down. So if we went in for maybe 60 plus add-ons, or we included a player, Brighton, we know they like Levi Cole, but I think they also are fans of Carney Chukwuemeka as well. So maybe he could go on loan to Brighton for a season potentially, although I would like to see him as part of the squad next season. So there are options there, but ultimately we need to make sure that we don't get left behind. Let me get to a few things in the chat before we move on. What we've got here? Oh, people are worried because our primary targets, Caicedo, Rice, will taken away. Then you end up fishing in secondary choices. No, we shouldn't be missing. But like, ultimately, it's not. It's like, it is quite hard to get your primary targets every single time. There's a lot more to it than that. Arsenal
Can
won't
I just quickly say on that point? I hear what you're saying on that point, but it's nice when you've identified a target, especially because we were interested in Caicedo back in January as well. So it's not just that his name has just been thrown on the table and we've gone, oh yeah, I like that. Let's go for that. It's that he has been kind of linked around Chelsea for some time. We've obviously been keeping an eye out, and yeah, I get that it's not the end of the world if we're not going in for someone immediately. But at the end of the day, we want Caicedo because we see him kind of fitting into Chelsea. Pochettino obviously is probably very fond of him as well, because we know that Poch is having a big say as well and who's coming in. So that's more of like my issue with that. It's not that there aren't secondary, third options, but I just don't want it to get to a time where we're kind of turning around, seeing whoever's left, and then just offering a crazy or an unfitting rather fee for somebody that isn't kind of deserving of that, and then we've kind of gone and overspent. So that's the only issue. I know there's loads of time. I'm aware of that, but I get that comment that, you kind of want to still show that you are trying to get your targets, if that makes sense. And that obviously it's not the end of the world, you don't. But like I said, Caicedo has been someone that's been linked around Chelsea for a while. And obviously there is reason to be wanting him this much.
Just on this, by the way, Jack, like, we are identifying talents. We've got Andre Santos, we've got Cesare Caicedo. Both Caicedo particularly has been ripping it up in the Under-20 World Cup. A lot of people around Chelsea are really excited by him, and he could be one that does be part of. He's going to be part of the squad next season. We have got Carney Chukwuemeka. We've signed Malagusto. Obviously, we're not necessarily finding these guys, but we're getting cheap deals done for them, young age, exciting players. So we are finding players, but ultimately, when you need the quality of midfielder that we need and the revamp of midfield that we need, you need to be shopping at the top table. And unfortunately, when you're shopping at the top table, you do have to spend the big money. I'm not saying, let's go and chuck 100 million at Moises Caicedo, but we are going to have to pay big money. I don't think we're stupid enough to realize that, we could probably get Caicedo on the cheap for 50 mil. That just isn't happening. So you want the top players, you have to pay the top money. And however you want to structure that deal, obviously we can try and do something smart around it potentially, but ultimately we will have to spend big money, and it just depends how early do we show our hand. Like, can we convince Caicedo to come to Chelsea? I mean, this is going to be a slightly biased view because it always will be slightly, because obviously being a Chelsea fan, but like the only thing that's more attractive about Arsenal than Chelsea is the fact they've got Champions League football next season. If you actually look at it in a bigger picture, I think with the infrastructure, with the quality of the player and squad, the manager, and the potential as to where Chelsea could go in the next few years is far greater than what Arsenal could do. And I honestly believe that Chelsea will win trophies before Arsenal will. They'll win a league before Arsenal will. And the only thing that's more attractive is the Champions League football next season. So if we can convince Caicedo that, look, we're going to be back in the Champions League the following season. Look, you're 21 years of age. You are going to play Champions League football. You can't be that desperate for it right now. Yes, you could say he could stay up Brighton and play Europa League football next season. Yeah, of course. Like we don't have European football to offer, but it's London. I mean, no disrespect to Brighton, but I think London's probably a lot nicer than Brighton is. The lifestyle, the obviously all the stuff, the quality of the players. I think we've got a better squad than Arsenal in terms of the talent on our hands to play with a World Cup winner in Enzo Fernandez. There is appeal to a move to Chelsea, but ultimately, we're going to have to offer competitive wages, which is not something we always do with the new structure we're looking for. And we're going to have to really convince him and really be persuasive on the sporting side of the project. But before I get to these things in the chat, let me bring up the next one about Declan Rice. Obviously, won the Conference League last night. Great to see for him, joining Billy Bonds and Bobby Moore as the only as 3 West Ham captains to lift the trophy. So it was a great night for them, whatever we think of West Ham. It was nice for them. Declan Rice playing a massive part in it. And then West Ham chairman, which one is it? David Sullivan, I think it is, saying that, he's going to leave. So West Ham chairman David Sullivan saying, we promised Declan Rice he could go. He set his heart on going. He rejected 200 grand a week 18 months ago. I think offers will start to come today. There are 3 or 4 clubs who have shown interest. So obviously, he was speaking on TalkSport today with Jim White. I love Declan Rice. And I say this, the guys that watch regularly were like, Charlie, you said this about a lot of players. There are a few, but Rice is so good. Like, he's such a top player, 24 years of age, box-to-box midfielder. I think he'd be perfect alongside Enzo Fernandez if he play in a pivot, or he can obviously play at the base if necessary. But like, this should have been easy for Chelsea to do in a sense that, he's come through the academy, he's best mates with Mason Mount, he's good mates with JT. All the things that are lining up there. And, that 18 months ago, rejecting that 200 grand would suggest that he was potentially could have been holding out for Chelsea. I'd like to think that 3 or 4 clubs interested, surely we must be one of them. It's obviously Arsenal, it's Bayern Munich, it's hopefully us, and then maybe Manchester United as well. Rice or Caicedo, if you had to have one?
Rice. Rice, no doubt, but that's just never happening, is it?
I don't know. It's unlikely. I'd be really sad if he goes to Arsenal.
Me too. I'd rather him leave the country and just go, but no.
Just go and play with Tuchel at Bayern. That's fine.
Exactly.
It would make me really quite sad if he. But I'd like to know, and obviously everyone's got their own reasons. But if I ever met him, I'd just love to ask him if he does go to Arsenal, why? Like, what are you seeing there that you wouldn't get at Chelsea? Apart from European football next season, what are you seeing there in the long run that is going to be better? Honestly, like, maybe I just don't want to admit it, but I cannot see how Arsenal in the long run over the next 2 or 3 years are going to do better than Chelsea in terms of winning trophies. I just can't see it. And maybe that's just me not wanting to see it. I don't really know, but do you think we should still try for him? Even though it looks like he perhaps doesn't want to come and maybe he's a bit disillusioned, surely we should just be like, look, here's your £92 million on the table, right?
Yeah, but is that what it will be? It won't be 92 million, that's for sure.
No, but he's got 1 year left on his contract. Well, they've got an option for a second, so you could say it's 2 years left on the contract. do you not think we should just try? And I know people will say, "Oh yeah," but then like if he rejects us and then he signs for Arsenal, and then they're going to banter us. Oh, he rejected you. Yeah, maybe so. But we had that fun with Mudryk. But I wouldn't. I'd be so annoyed if we didn't try. Surely we just got to put the money on the table, get the guys in a meeting with him, show him that PowerPoint presentation, convince him on the project, and do what we can. Do you not think we should just do it anyway? Surely we have to try. We can't let someone of this quality just go to another club and not even try.
I guess we could, but never for over 100 mil. In my opinion, I think that what message we're putting out with that as well is that obviously we're trying to go against what we've done in the previous couple windows, right? Like just offering heaps amount of money, just putting it on the table for this one player. And of course he's fantastic, he's amazing, but I also think that Caicedo could do an equally good job, if you know what I mean. Like, I understand that obviously Rice is at another level at the moment. He is obviously for a reason been shown interest by so many Premier League clubs outside of Europe, Bundesliga, all of that stuff. There is reason for that. However, I'd rather pay 80 million for Caicedo and leave obviously kind of the rest of that money to be kind of dispersed a lot more equally, rather than throwing out 110, 120 million for Declan Rice, even if it may not be that of an extortionate fee. But even still, because I think that message goes against kind of what we are trying to do at the club right now. And I also don't think there's any point in trying to convince a player to come to Chelsea at the moment. That is also going against everything that we are yet to discover. And that is obviously bringing in players who want to be at Chelsea, who want to stay at Chelsea. We've had enough of those players that have arrived, been unhappy, wanted to leave, kind of, snaked the club in various ways on social media, on the media, wherever. And I just don't really want a player that isn't happy at Chelsea, wants to be at Chelsea. Obviously, Mason Mount's future at Chelsea at the moment is uncertain, so I don't think Rice is considering that as a factor, playing with his best mate, because that's just not really certain at the moment. So I don't think Chelsea's turning his head at the moment. I don't think he's dying to come to the club. Of course, we Chelsea fans are and would love to see that. But like I said, I'd rather not try and sponge something that isn't there just solely because we want him that much. And I'd rather, like I said, get Caicedo in for 80 million and obviously kind of save the rest of the money to be dispersed in a different way across the other areas that we need to address. Basically,
mate, I can't give up on this, mate.
You have to.
No, I can't. I'm not gonna let it go. I'm just gonna, I know it's really not going to happen, but you've got to hold on to a little bit of hope. We just need to try. Just try. Right? That's the main thing. You can't just sit and watch Rice go to Arsenal. That'd be like the worst. I actually really enjoy watching Declan Rice. I hate seeing him in an Arsenal shirt. It'll be terrible. Like it should have been so simple for us to get this done. Best mates with Mason Mount. Been through was at the academy. Fortunately, we released him when he was 14. Now, of course, we can say, we shouldn't have done that. Well, when you're 14, it's quite hard to tell if someone's going to go.
Mate, are we really going to sit here and talk about all the players that we let go at the academy?
Yeah, Musiala as well at Bayern. Obviously, that wasn't really our fault, but that's unfortunate. Caicedo is more Kante. Yeah, no, he is. I like Caicedo. I think he's a phenomenal footballer. 21. All the things that he does. He's a bit of a Kante regen as such. The amount of ground he covers, how good he is on the ball. He's great. Look, he's a phenomenal midfield player. I wouldn't be upset with either one of them. I just like Rice a bit more. Maybe that's because he's just a bit more of a lad. Caicedo seems a little bit quiet. Maybe, yeah, he just is. I don't know. Maybe it's that British tax as well. But although I think that's unfair, if Rice was foreign, I'd probably still be a massive fan of him. So, yeah, we need to try. We need to try. But again, do you worry about the wages in terms of because obviously we've got a new wage structure in place per se. And I think it's a good thing because the days where we're just offering fucking 200k, 150k to players that aren't really good enough or weren't deserving of it, and then we can't get rid of them, and then we just loan them out and out before they leave on a free. So from that sense, I think it's good to get the wage budget under control. Yes, we've got this new incentivized thing. So there's a lower base salary with guaranteed money. And then obviously, depending on how you do individually or as a team, that can go up. And obviously, the likes of Enzo Fernandez, Mudryk, Madueke, the guys that come in January have all signed up to that, which is great. But I think maybe if we're looking at top players, it could be a little bit of a struggle to maybe bring them in and convince them of that in that to fall into that, new incentivized structure. But I guess for me, like as a player, you've got to back yourself. Like, if you play well, you're going to earn more money. So whilst people say, Chelsea aren't offering that great wages, well, we are. It's just you've got to work for it a little bit more. So like you're gonna for example, like people say about Ugarte, we offered €3.5 million. Yeah, guaranteed. If we qualify for Champions League, that could have easily been another million euros. So that could have been 4.5. We win a trophy or something, it could go up to 5 million a season. So that desire to keep players hungry, and like whatever people say about money, like if you like, people hate being penalized financially. Like they don't like losing money for obvious reasons. So it keeps that level of hunger there. It keeps that desire there. It's that motivation to perform better. But do you think that this is a good thing? And do you think like if we're really strict and rigid with it, that we could also miss out on top players to clubs that aren't really as strict with their wage budget as we are?
I mean, there's just two sides to it. It's not really about what you think. It's exactly what you said. Yes, it keeps players working for it. You don't get those kind of overly confident players that are just waiting for that paycheck and just not doing anything on the pitch to prove that they deserve it. You kind of stop getting players demanding as well more money kind of like halfway through seasons where things just aren't going well, and the club feeling obliged to meet that and to keep offering more money, because again that just doesn't send a good message out. So from one aspect, this new structure kind of gets to regulate that a little bit as well. I think for us it's been a big problem that we've had these players that have demanded a lot more money than they have perhaps wanted to earn. I think a lot of people have said that about Mason Mount as well. Well, you demand more money, but like you haven't shown that you deserve that. And obviously that's just a question of its own, but it definitely does keep players working for it and not just receiving it, because then obviously that's why we were so disappointed this season, is because they're not playing well. We're the ones that are walking away disappointed, but at the end of the day, they're getting paid, they're getting their fat paycheck. So, they're crying in their like nice cars. We're the ones that are crying on the tube home. So, hey, but on the flip side, it's exactly what you said. We do risk kind of bringing in big names, but at the end of the day, I think what we are building on here for this long-term project should be able to set that in place, that look, you come to a club, this is the contract you are offered, and then you work your way up for it. You work for a different contract. Obviously, a lot of our players are now locked into 6, 7, 8 year deals, and obviously things will change, but I think we should stick to that rather than, doing it for the one-off sort of players and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we've got to work off our socks ourselves. We've got to get back into playing Europe, and then things like this won't be a problem to bring in top players to start off at whatever kind of wages. But if you're going with this, you kind of have to see it through, because the regime's obviously changed. It's a new structure. If we're applying new regulations, then we've got to stick to them. So yeah, you get that, but as well with the young players that we've brought in at the moment, they're not coming in. You don't have high standards. All due respect, but you're still starting out young. A lot of them have been either obviously academy players or have been brought in from other leagues and have shown good quality, yes. However, not all of them are deserving of immediate like 300k week contracts. No. So it keeps young players motivated, keeps them having something to work with. You're in a 6, 7 year, 8 contract. Things will change. You will get better. You will be more deserving of more money. So, yes, from one aspect it's good, but you're always just going to have a flip side. You're always just going to have the other side to it at the end of the day. So I think though majority is better, is for the greater good for sure.
I mean, I think this is a good point from Top Bins that, with younger players, I think it can definitely work, because with the guys that are coming from those leagues, like Madrid coming from Shakhtar Donetsk, where would have been earning compared to like us, would have been earning ridiculous money. But in terms of, compared to Chelsea, like you could probably offer Mudryk 60 grand a week, and that could be 5-6 times more than he was getting at Shakhtar. So younger guys coming from other lesser leagues, it's definitely much easier because you can offer them a lot more money and still be well within that structure. But I think, as Top Bin said, with the more experienced pros, the idea of getting Declan Rice in on potentially less than 100k a week guaranteed that's going to be quite tricky, considering West Ham offered him 200 grand a week and he turned that down. Would you really sign for Chelsea on a guaranteed 100k a week, for example? I don't really know. So I think for the more experienced players, it could be a problem. Again, for Caicedo, I don't think it'd be much of an issue, because I don't think his wages at Brighton are huge. He came from somewhere in Ecuador, I think, or came from South America for £4.5 million. he obviously wasn't. I don't think he was earning very much money there. So, yeah, there's a bit of a contrast here. But another thing that for me leads me more towards Rice and Caicedo is not only, I mean, look, ability-wise, they're both phenomenal footballers, but in terms of that leadership, Rice obviously a captain, leader. Not going to say, well, he's a legend at West Ham, but he's captain and leader, like, you know, and we're missing so much leadership, and he bring you that on the pitch. How important is it for you as well that in terms of the signings this summer, that we not only get quality, but we also get players that are leaders? Because you look at the pitch on the pitch now, and other than Thiago Silva when he plays, there's no leaders there. Reece James could potentially develop into one of those. I think Enzo Fernandez can develop into a leader as well, but there's no leaders. There's no, like we used to have it with Drogba, Cech, Ballack, Essien, Terry,
Charlie,
Gallas,
stop my heart.
like Ashley Cole, these guys, and like, you know, yes, we're trying to get back to where we were, but they haven't got any leaders. So how important is that for you as well? That not only we get quality, but we also get leadership on the pitch? Because I think that's going to make a massive difference. Because at times this season, in certain games, we've just looked lost. Like players are just looking around, and no one's demanding more, and they're kind of just accepting of that level.
Oh no, leadership is massive. I think we brought in a lot of young talent, but equally you can't just have a bunch of young players that are just learning how to play at a more senior level, to play at a high club level and compete in Europe. They need to be taking example from other leaders on the pitch, those more vocal players like Thiago Silva, who can pick them up in games where things aren't going wrong, need that motivation to keep them going. Because like you said, there's been many times last season where we've literally seen players drop their heads. Nobody's arguing with the ref or trying to, you know, get a decision to go our way. Nobody trying to get something out of the game. Nobody trying to change anything. And it's just, well, everyone's been so submissive. And then you get that with how much little experience we have. And obviously, you know, Kante's left now as well. And yeah, he's not been the most vocal as a captain when he has been, but it's about physical leadership as well. It's about that physical presence as well. So I think we equally still need to bring in some experience. So I hear you on the Declan Rice point, because of course what you can compare Caicedo and Rice with is that captain kind of leader there as well, which obviously Rice possesses, has up his sleeve. He's led his team to a trophy yesterday. So, you know, that is something that is crucial, I think, in the squad, 100%. There's nothing wrong with recruiting young prospects, but you still need to have experienced leadership in there. You know, it all kind of starts from the back line, like it did with Terry, like it does with Silva. So obviously Silva's numbered days at Chelsea are going to come to an end one day, and I worry that perhaps we are obviously recruiting a lot of young talent. That is great, but equally there needs to be that sort of captain there. And you say Reece James, but even for me, he isn't also the most kind of vocal on the pitch, is
No.
he? He's someone that is a lot quieter. And yeah, of course, like captains take different shapes and forms, do different things. Not everyone needs to be screaming the ref's head off or screaming down, you know, defenders' backs and throwing hands and biting them. But you equally still need to have some sort of presence that picks players up, keeps your team going, and that is something that has been missing at Chelsea. Of course, Azpilicueta leaving as well, arguably another leader that you can see there, someone that has literally also screamed refs' heads off. And at times it's been something he needed, because he's been able to pick up the team a lot of the time. He's you know, had that impact there. So I think for me, it's fantastic. I'm excited about all the young prospects, but I think we need to replace that with some experience as well, with some leadership there as well, because when you look at future captain prospects, I can literally count them on my two fingers. So that's your issue.
Maybe Enzo, maybe Reece James. That's about it.
That's literally two.
There's not anyone else. Guys, before I get into this kind of breaking news, there's over 100 of us in here, people. We've got 42 likes, guys. Come on, we can do much better than this. Make sure,
come on, guys.
Make sure you smash the likes. Get this to at least 50. Let's aim for 100 again. We got well over 100 yesterday, so we need to be getting on the road to 100 likes again, guys. So just hover over that thumb button, give it a little click. It massively helps me out. It spreads the stream to more people, and I'd really appreciate it. And whilst you're at it, guys, make sure you smash the subscribe button as well. On the road to 4,000 subscribers. Looking to get there before the start of the season. So if you're new around here and you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But yeah, guys, let's get this to 100 likes if we can, people. Let's get into this not breaking news, kind of breaking news. Arsenal are preparing to lodge a renewed offer for Moises Caicedo. It's understood the Gunners will make a bid similar to the 75 million package that was rejected in January. Sources close to the player suggest Caicedo is feeling relaxed about the situation and No personal terms have been agreed with anyone, as Fabrizio, and we were discussing yesterday. We need to get a move on, basically, is the reality to the situation here. It's going to take more than £75 million to get Caicedo for sure. He's relaxed about the situation. He knows that he's going to move this summer. He would have got those guarantees from Brighton. It just depends where. What do you think? Do you think Chelsea will react to this bid? Do you think if this bid goes in imminently, which I expect maybe in the next week, it might well do so. Do you expect Chelsea to react quickly?
Oh yeah, we love a little bit of a bid race, don't we? We love a little bit of a bid race. So yeah, Arsenal, come for us, because we are offering some. I'm confident that we're going to offer something better than that. And like I said, I don't think we're about to back down to Arsenal for this one, especially and specifically. So yeah, like I said, we've been holding on to Caicedo since January as a future signing, and I'm confident, or at least I want to believe, have faith that the club is going to at least put up a fight to get Caicedo, because yeah, it's not all about having just that one option. There's loads of targets there, but it's about having the right target. And Caicedo, like I said previously, has been a target since January, and we kept supposedly coming a little bit closer, but obviously Brighton kept kind of, moving our hands away from that. So now it's looking a little bit more possible, and it looks like we are in talks with that. I think we need to do what we need to do to beat Arsenal to that, because like I said, I do worry that as a young player, Caicedo could potentially have his head turned because of Champions League football. Yes, it's not forever. Unfortunately, Caicedo, there's only one team in London that wins Champions League, so you better be turning your head right back to us. But yeah, we are definitely going to put something on there.
Surely Arsenal haven't got 80 odd million quid, surely Arsenal haven't got almost 200 million to fucking spend on Rice and Caicedo. There's no way. I just refuse to believe that. They surely can't have that much money to spend. Maybe they do. They're going to sell players as well. I don't know. Granit Xhaka's going. I don't know what other players can go. But we got to move fast. Because yeah, you can agree terms with multiple clubs, but ultimately, if Arsenal put a bid in, we need to make sure that we get a bid in quick as well, because otherwise, we could just leave them an open goal virtually to Caicedo. So already, sort of 5-6 days before the window even opens, we've got massive developments in the market. Let me just get to a few bits in the chat quickly, and then we'll move on from midfield. We spent probably quite a lot of time on this. Reminds me of the Jose talk with Spurs about being soft and not mate. That's more what you're referring to on the pitch, or do you mean off the pitch? I think off the pitch we are ruthless negotiators. You only have to look at Egbali. He looks like some sort of mafia boss. He doesn't take shit. If he flies in for negotiations, then we're in business. But Win Stanley, there's been mixed reports on his negotiating abilities. I don't think he's the best. But, if we're going to get guys like Egbali and Mboli to do the deals, it's weird how in the summer we had no problems with these deals because Boli was dealing with it. And now we're having a few issues with deals because other guys are getting involved. But yeah, let's see. We're going to lose Colwell over this. We might have, to be fair though, Brighton have got something we want. We've got something they want. We might have to come to a compromise maybe. Do we even have the money to compete? Yeah, no, we do have the money. We absolutely have money, and we don't have to sell before we buy. But we need to get rid of some players, because you don't want to bring more players into an already bloated squad and then realise that shit, we can't actually get rid of these guys, and you've got a problem. That's going to be part of it for sure. That will be a massive part of it. But he's going to be earning so much more money than he was at Brighton, at Arsenal, or at Chelsea. So I don't think that's a massive problem. Need to move fast. We are not in the driving seat since we don't have the UCL to offer Caicedo or Rice. Yeah, we need to act quickly. Let's just get a move on. Caicedo, Enzo. Yeah, Caicedo and Enzo, Rice and Enzo. Yeah, it's a wonderful thought, but I don't want to think about it too much because it could be massively let down. FFP 3-year cycle starts this window. Yes, that's why we need to raise 100 million. Arsenal were considering. Yeah, Alex Goldberg was talking about this. We'll get into that in a sec. Arsenal aren't getting both. I hope not, mate. But until one of them is in a different shirt, maybe holding up the Chelsea shirt, you can never be too sure. Let's move away from midfield because we spent bloody ages on this, more than I was expecting to. Let's quickly talk about a few more bits and pieces, guys. What am I going to be looking at now? No, not that. Is it that one? Yeah, let's go with this one. Let's talk about Mason Mount because, how can you not talk about Mount when talking about Chelsea? obviously we know that he's could be going to Man United potentially. You've got the problems with the contract. The club are going to pick up talks with him again potentially. There is an outside chance that maybe he could still stay. But United began pitching for Mason Mount at the £40 million mark. Yeah, you're going to have to cough up a bit more than that one, boys. There's a significant gap in valuation. Chelsea say they want 70 million plus add-ons, and that's coming from The Athletic and their Man United correspondent. Nina, in terms of price for Mason Mount, obviously, we both love him to stay. I know certain people don't want him to stay. That's fine. Different opinions, no problem. Do you think from a Chelsea perspective, is £70 million for Mason Mount with 1 year left on his contract, is that a fair price to ask for? Or is that too much, do you think?
It's a tricky one. At first, I thought it would be something like 55, 60 on the table now. It's surprising me now that's actually what he is rated at, 70 million. But at the same time, I would say yes. I would say yes from a selfish Chelsea fan perspective, because obviously he's our homegrown. He is Mason Mount. He's been with us for such a long time. And if we are selling him to Manchester United as well, that is key. Firstly, because forget the money. We know we need to make money off homegrown players as well. But if we're selling him to Manchester United, then of course I'm going to be demanding as much money as I can get. Do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like oh God, I can't lie to you. It pains me to see Mason Mount in a Manchester United shirt. Like I literally opened my Instagram and saw it, and I just thought it was like a fake edit or something. But it seems to be real. But if 70 million is what they're offering, I mean, at the end of the day, the worst thing that could happen is him walking out on a free, one day. So I'd say 70 million is I'd take it, I guess. I don't know.
I'm not sure if we can. I don't know if we can get that for him.
I don't think we can. But I as a selfish Chelsea fan, I'd put that on the table. Give me as much as you can.
I think that could be too. I think it's tricky. Obviously, I can understand why Chelsea are asking for that, because he's 24 years of age. He's got his best years ahead of him. He's English. He's obviously come through the academy as well, which, they probably want a bit more for him. But at the same time, we're in a bit of a tricky position because he's coming off the back of a shocking season. And 1 year left on the contract. And you look at players that have got a year left, like Declan Rice, for example, is obviously going to be worth much more than Mason Mount is. And because he's obviously played a lot better. But again, Mount's got potential. Mount is still a good footballer and he can be very useful for Chelsea. But I honestly think at £70 million, I can't see United agreeing to that.
But then you've got the question, how desperate are they for Man United? Because obviously Ten Hag has said has shown and expressed interest in Mason Mount as part of his future plans for Man United. Like you said, he's still got a lot of playing time in him. He's young. He's not washed or anything. He's just come back from a few injuries, not had the best season at all. He's kind of had a fall off. But, there's a lot of factors to that. I truly believe that Mason Mount's situation is just so much more complex than what meets the eye. There's just so much more to it, which is why it's so difficult. 70 million, I think maybe it will a little bit less in terms of what you'd rate him as. But then at the same time, I'm not going to say that he's not. Do you know what I mean? He's been up at Chelsea. He's won trophies at his young age. He's been at Chelsea since he could literally walk, and at the end of the day we do still rate him highly. We're still, because then you look at on the other side, and what if we let him go for some abysmal, stupid low sum where you think how could we actually sell him to Manchester United for that little money? So you've got two sides for it. Of course we're going to push for more, but I would have personally thought it would have been maybe something around 55, 60 million potentially.
I think honestly, I think 60 million is a fair price. I don't want to see him go, but I just can't see how you can expect to get more than. I don't see how you can expect to get 70 million pounds. And it depends how desperate Man United are for him, because clubs will have a valuation on a player and they won't go and they won't be prepared to go above a certain amount. We saw it with Cucurella and Man City. Man City weren't prepared to go above 49 million pounds. We were. So yes, there's strong interest from United, but ultimately, they'll have a price that they're not prepared to go above. Chelsea have got a target. Yes, there could be an agreement. Maybe Chelsea don't actually want 70 million, but if you set the asking price at 70 and you go to the negotiating table, maybe you can agree on 60. And actually, that's maybe what they do want, because I'm not a businessman, but I guess good negotiating tactics is to go in with more than saying, look, I want 70 million. when in reality you want 60, and then you've got a negotiation to have. Whereas if you go straight in saying, yeah, we want 60, you're not going to get it, and then you're going to end up with less than you want. So I guess from a Mount perspective, 60 million pounds, that's I take it. I think it would be good money for the club. It would be profit straight away. Homegrown player would help us massively with FFP. But I mean, I think there's still a long way to go on this Mount saga. But ultimately, like right now, are you resigned to the fact that he's going to go? Can you see any way how we get a bit of a U-turn here and he ends up staying?
I mean, I've heard, obviously everything is just what you've heard, what you've seen, what you've read, what is like, there's a lot of speculation, but from what I've seen and read, apparently he wants to stay. How true that is, I don't know. Apparently, obviously he's just been pushing for the club to kind of value him more and actually offer him the contract that he wants and he thinks he is deserving of. And that is his criteria for him to stay. But on the other hand, I haven't really quite come to terms with him going to Manchester United. In my head, it's just still some sort of rumour. Like, I don't know. I thought he would be part of Poch's long-term plans, but then again, it's not just up to Poch really at all here as well. I think Mason Mount has kind of a lot of agency in this decision and kind of what happens from here on. And there's obviously a lot of people involved in the situation. But I mean, it's Chelsea. Anything can happen. I do see this taking a U-turn. Although if that happens, I just feel like we'd be in a bit of an awkward position as well. I feel like if there were any people that didn't like or disliked Mason Mount at Chelsea last season, I feel like there's about to be a whole lot more after the situation, because then people just feel like a little bit let down with the fact that one of our homegrown players, one of our own, when you think Chelsea, you think Mason Mount, like, is truly regarded highly at Stamford Bridge, idolised by so many. And to think that he even considered or was interested in, because when you read agreed personal terms, that is a very kind of intimate thing, isn't it? Personal terms agreed with a club, that's very kind of, close up, and it makes you feel like the player was very involved as well with that decision and wants to go there. So to think that Mason Mount has expressed interest and really, really wants to actually go to Man United is going to be something that we as fans will be hard to come to terms with in terms of that, because then you question, well, Mount, are you actually here just to stay, just so you can get that do you know what I mean, just so you can get more money, or like what exactly is it? But I find it hard to believe that he has a genuine interest to go and play for Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? I feel like he was either pushed towards it. I feel like the ownership as well, I feel like the club had a lot to do with it as well. I definitely don't think, and I'm sorry for those Chelsea fans who think that this is just all Mason Mount. I know that the club also had a lot to do with it. Obviously, we knew that he was offered a contract. It was taken off the table. What happened after then, before, and whatever, you won't ever know the truth. But I also think that Mason Mount, still being the guy he is, I still think that he is devoted to the club and he loves Chelsea. I can't say otherwise. And if you can, then I don't know why, because I feel like he could have gone about this in a very different way as well. He could have just turned on the club and just shed a bad spotlight and said, look, this is how they've treated me. This is what has happened. But I feel like the fact that it has just been dealt in this way and Mason Mount has been so quiet with it, I feel like he might have been let down as well by a lot of people at the club.
Yeah, it is tricky. Ultimately, like, I feel that we're never really going to know the truth because there's so much mixed stuff that comes out. A lot of stuff comes out saying, oh, yeah, it's the club's fault. They've moved the goalpost. Then it's Mount's fault. He doesn't want to sign. He's asking too much money. And then you get like so many mixed reports out there. People just pick what to believe based on the narrative that they've chosen. And until some clarity from the club would be great on this, like on what the exact situation is, rather than kind of like point scoring statements that come out saying, oh, it's Mount's fault, oh, it's the club's fault, or whatever. Like, we need to come to some sort of resolution. Like, this really shouldn't have been a difficult contract to sort out. This should have been one of the easiest contracts possible to do. And I don't know if it's because, but you look at all the guys that have already extended: Reece James, Chalobah, Chilwell, Thiago Silva, year extension, easy to sort out. Broja, easy to sort out. But it shouldn't make that much difference. But this was before the directors were in place. All those guys were sorted out, minimal fuss. Bowley dealt with the contract negotiations. Now that Bowley's not really dealing with the contract negotiations, and this is the first one we've come to renew, really, it seems to be a massive problem. Now, I don't know if that's just a coincidence or there's something more to it. But I think Mount does want to stay at Chelsea. I think he does. I think he'd like to stay at the club. But ultimately, like, if he feels disrespected, the club have gone back on their word or whatever, then you can fully understand him wanting to leave. And I guess there's also the point that maybe he just doesn't believe in the direction the club's going in. Maybe he just doesn't believe that, under these owners, that Chelsea are going to go back to where they were, or it's not Chelsea how he once knew it. And, he wants to go and try something else elsewhere. That's also a possibility. So, I think until people are going to come up with their own assumptions and whatnot, but until all the facts are on the table, if they ever are, it is hard to just shift blame at one side. I suspect it's a collective responsibility as to why this still hasn't happened. I still hold out hope that maybe this can be turned around with the amount of players we're losing. We could do with keeping him. But I mean, just on this from De Freezy, Felix was a waste of money. We should have used that money to sign up Mount. We need experienced players in the team. Can't all be 19-year-olds. No, I agree on that. Ultimately, the Mount situation, we shouldn't even be in this situation because he should have been offered a new contract after we won the Champions League. Simple as that. And yet, for whatever reason, he wasn't. And now he's not in a particularly strong negotiating position, having come off a shocking season. It makes it a little bit harder to negotiate from that position. Whereas you just contributed massively to winning the Champions League, you're in a very, very strong negotiating position in that sense. But with Mason Mount, what will be, will be. We'll see what happens. Let me get to a few things in the chat before we move on to the last couple of bits before rounding out. I like Mount. Wouldn't mind if he stays or goes. Fair. Around 50 million. Yeah, okay. Mount doesn't want Chelsea anymore. We need to move on. I don't know if he is done here. Maybe I'm just, trying to think it into existence that he does want to still be here. Who knows? Invest in the money. Nick, big up my guy. Thanks for tuning in as always. What else have we got here? Invest the money into Maddison. His way back. I mean, Leicester want in excess of 50 mil for Maddison. So look, if Mount leaves, I wouldn't mind Maddison as a replacement. It's a tricky one. What if he believes the incentives aren't reachable with the current squads? Yeah, I did cover that. I didn't actually see this in the chat. It's a fair point. Maddison also has experience in a relegation battle as does Lavia. Yeah, relegation battle experience could be key. If we find ourselves in a tricky situation next season. How much can we sell for Colwell? I mean, I think we could sell Colwell for 50, 60 million pounds, but we won't. Caicedo's good. Yeah, he definitely is. Yep. I mean, simple as that. Yep, true. Neela, you love Kante. You got a favourite Kante moment whilst I'm getting a few more things up?
I love Kante, guys. I could talk about Kante forever. I'm actually going to miss him so much. Yeah, my favourite moment is when he made 3 Tottenham players to score a lovely, beautiful goal.
Which one was that? No. Oh, was that at the Tottenham Stadium? Was it at Stamford Bridge?
Yeah, it was at Tottenham, I think.
Oh, was that the one when he came on at half-time in the game? It was 0-0.
Yeah.
We did 3-0. It was like with Tuchel.
My favourite moment of Kante was him trying to play as a striker when he returned from injury this season.
I don't understand why they play him so far forward as well. It doesn't make sense. By the way, guys, there's still plenty of us locked in here. We're only at 63 likes. Let's get those likes up. Let's get it to at least 70. Could even reach 80 by the time we round up, people. So keep hitting the like button. It massively helps me out. I do really appreciate it. So do that. We've done well so far this week. So keep smashing those likes and keep subscribing to the channel if you're new around here as well. And we're now going to move on to another player that Chelsea fans love talking about, Kai Havertz. Now, obviously, we linked with Real Madrid. Interest is there. Ancelotti's a fan. He's appreciated internally at the club. They obviously tried to sign him when we signed him back in 2020. And now, according to Fabrizio Romano, where is it? Real Madrid consider £52 million plus add-ons for Havertz too much. The situation is not advancing due to this. It just kind of goes to show how badly Havertz has done at Chelsea, that a player we signed for £70 million that's now, I think he may be 23, with his best years ahead of him, isn't even like Real Madrid, the biggest club in the world, consider a £20 million reduction on the price that we bought him for 3 years ago to be too much. Do you think £52 million for Havertz is too much? Do Chelsea need to readjust their valuation on him? I think with 2 years left on a contract and with the potential that he does have, even though we've not seen it at Chelsea, I actually think 50 million is not a bad deal for him.
It's not a bad deal, Charlie, but would you pay that for Havertz? I can't lie to you.
No, if I had 50 million, I'd probably have better things to spend it on than Havertz. But, I mean, I don't think it's a bad deal. Is that really a bad deal? £50 million?
I actually don't. I don't particularly like Havertz that much. He's not my favourite player. I think a lot of people that watch my videos know that I'm not his biggest fan. However, I genuinely think he would probably go off and do a better job in La Liga than he ever did in the Premier League. I truly think that he would literally go to Real Madrid, and knowing our luck, he would literally have his best season in the past 4 seasons at Real Madrid, scoring goals, no problems whatsoever, because that's just how things go. So when you look at it from that aspect, yeah, absolutely, pay the 52 million, because you know exactly what you're going to get. You will get some goals here and there. I mean, Kai Havertz, I think, will just feel a lot more comfortable there as well. And obviously, okay, well, I swear they were kind of looking at Kai Havertz as a top target, especially after Benzema officially left.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're still interested in him, but at that price, they're not keen. Now that could be a briefing from Real Madrid saying that in an attempt to try and bring Chelsea's price down. There could easily be that. I don't know if Real Madrid would actually think that £52 million is too expensive for Kai Havertz, or are they briefing that in an attempt to try and get them to lower his price? I don't know. Chris must be a Real Madrid fan. Havertz and a tenner and a bottle of Prime. And we'll forget about Hazard. He didn't get the best deal out of Eden Hazard. We got his best years, and then kind of all went wrong for him.
It's going to be a swap now. Watch it be a swap. Hazard flopped it when he went off.
Yeah, but Havertz is a free agent, so we can't swap him.
I'm not talking about a swap in that sense. I'm saying, obviously, Hazard went and flopped at Real Madrid. Watch Havertz go to Real Madrid and actually thrive, and it's actually the other way around, because
I think he'd do really well. I do too.
I
think he'd be good. Look, ultimately, whatever. I've been very critical of Kai Havertz this season, and for good reason. But ultimately, he's a phenomenally talented player. He's got great ability, great attributes, but it just doesn't seem to work at Chelsea, and it doesn't really seem to work in the Premier League. And at Real Madrid, I think he'd do really well. A slower pace of football, maybe just a different pace, maybe not as physical, perhaps more space on the ball, more time on the ball. I think he could do really well there. And it doesn't mean that, we made a massive mistake selling him. It just means that Havertz wasn't suited to Chelsea. We couldn't get the best out of him. There's no point keeping him in the hope that, he might come good. And we just have this conversation every single summer. Give him one more season. He might come good. Good. But I think, I don't know how much lower Chelsea can go than 50 million for Havertz, with 2 years left on a contract and the potential of the player. Again, I think, as I said, Madrid could be using it as a negotiating tactic. And as said in the chat here, teams can lowball us. We have to get rid of a lot of players, and everyone knows it. I think that's an important thing to remember as well, is that everyone knows Chelsea are doing some sort of DFS sale, everything must go sort of situation. And they're going to try their luck. They're going to lowball us with offers because they know we have to get rid of players. So they are going to try their luck and get better deals. Do you think we're in a bit of a weak situation, potentially, aren't we, in terms of negotiating, knowing that we have to get rid of players? So, I mean, do you think we're going to have to accept some deals that actually aren't what we want, just to get these guys off the books?
Yeah, this is what I was going to say, because we're not in a position to be picky and to be choosy. We are literally trying to sell as many players as we can. We need to make a certain money up to obviously get into the good books of FFP and make up for some of those wrongdoings there. So yeah, do you know what, if we have to lower that Havertz price tag, then I can't lie to you, by all means, I don't want to keep him at Chelsea for another season trying to sponge out something that just isn't there. It's just far too late. I think 3 seasons, it's 3 seasons now, isn't it, he's been with us?
He's done 3 seasons.
3 seasons, that's enough to call it quits. Just call it for what it is. It hasn't worked out. It's not like he's played only under one manager and it's just been one manager that can't figure him out. It's just been, a number of those. And I just feel like it's time to move on. So yeah, you're right. I feel like we're not in a position to be choosy with how much clubs are going to pay for some of our players, which, no disrespect, but aren't really living up to any expensive price tags at the moment, when you look at the likes of Havertz, for example. So yeah, beggars can't be choosers, and in that asset we're gonna have to make some of those cuttings on those prices. So like I said, I'd literally take 40 million for Havertz, and
if it was 52 million all in, maybe that's a different conversation. Maybe it was 52 million with add-ons, but I think 52 million and add-ons probably takes it more towards the 60 million pound mark, I would imagine. Yeah. Look, 52 million all in, maybe go 45 plus add-ons or whatever, as Ryan says here. And we got Nkunku, Sterling, Broja, Fofana, new striker. There's not really any room for Havertz. I would agree on that to an extent, although he could rotate in the number 10 slot with Nkunku if Mount were to leave. But then again, we don't really know what the situation is going to be. But I think it's clear now, if we do end up keeping Havertz, now I still think this could be a ploy from Madrid to try and get a better deal for themselves. But imagine what it's going to be like knowing that a move to Madrid kind of didn't materialize. What are his motivations going to be for the new season? Is he really going to be that up for it, knowing that he could have joined the biggest club in the world? Like everyone dreams of playing for Real Madrid. Like what would his situation be coming into the season? So I think ultimately that's probably why we've not had that much news on Havertz to Madrid in the last few days, because I think maybe Real do think he's too expensive. So yeah, look, I hope something can be resolved here, because I think ultimately we need to move on from the Kai Havertz situation. But there is a slight worry for me that we could still, come the start of the season, we could still have Havertz in the ranks, which would be an issue. I really do think it could be a massive problem. Let me get to these things here. We need to raise less than 100 mil before end of the month. Even if we raise 70 mil, we're good, because UEFA allows it. I don't know the exact ins and outs on FFP. The model is so complicated. So let's get on to a few more bits. But I mean, you definitely 100% convinced Havertz has to go this summer. We can't start the season with him.
Yeah, 100%. For the greater good. It's just for the greater good.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's time for Havertz to move on. By the way, guys, still only 68 likes. Come on, people. Let's get this to at least 80 before we round out in the next 5 minutes or so. There's plenty of you still locked in. So, guys, come on. You can do this. You've done well this week. Let's continue the good work we've been doing. So let's smash the likes, get it up to at least 80. People, keep subscribing to the channel if you're new round here as well. It massively helps me out as I'm trying to get to 4K before the start of the season. Let's just round out with the last thing about the owners. I was going to start with the owners, but we're going to finish with it. They obviously released a statement today. It's been pretty much give or take a year since they took over. I'll just briefly read through this and then we can discuss it. So they released a statement here. Our promise to you was to make our fans proud. We remain completely committed to the long-term and sustainable success of our club and fulfilling the promise we made to you. We know the huge potential we must grow to develop Chelsea, and it is a role we take seriously. Everybody working here is relentlessly focused on driving us forward. Clearly, the men's team, it's been a disappointing season, and there's a lot we can and will do better. Throughout these difficult periods, our fans have supported the players and team across the country and Europe with unfailing loyalty. We could not be more grateful for your incredible support. Let's forget that bit. Yeah, women's team have done really well, which is fantastic. Praise Emma Hayes for obvious reasons. For all the challenges of the past year, we are optimistic about the future. We are looking forward to welcoming Pochettino as head coach in July. We're building a modern scouting, talent ID and recruiting infrastructure within our sporting department, which will help us to identify and transform the squad around elite talent, a squad capable of consistently competing to win the Premier League, raise domestic cups, and win at the highest level in European football. The success we are aiming for is only possible with our supporters behind us. We are proud of the creation of all this stuff. We'll ensure you are at the heart of decision-making at the club. We'll continue to ensure your voices are heard as we look to the future. So, look, people will say what they want about this. I actually think it's a good thing that they're communicating with the fans. This is not in person, or yes, it's not through a video, but ultimately it's communication from the fans. We're not used to that because from Roman, I think in 20 years we've got two statements: one thanking Lampard for his time after he got sacked as manager, and the other one saying he's selling the club. Otherwise, he was very much out of sight, out of mind. He just took a backseat and let everyone else go. These guys are more hands-on. I like that. They've communicated with us. They've set their intentions out. And yes, of course, actions speak louder than words, but ultimately give them the time to sort their mistakes out this season and see what they do. If we're having this conversation in a year's time and not much has changed, then yeah, absolutely, we've got, a conversation to have about them and you can be critical and whatnot. But I think this is a step in the right direction. And ultimately people say, they've just bought this club to make money. But yeah, of course they have, because you invest in something for it to make money. But the only way to make money is to win and to be successful. So I absolutely believe that these owners want to be successful. And there's no two ways about it. I mean, what do you think of this from the owners today? Like, do you like it? Do you think it's a good thing that we get communication from them? Are you still a little bit undecided on them? Where are you kind of sitting with this one?
Yeah, look, I feel like they've made some wrong decisions, but I've not turned and been absolutely hateful towards them. You learn and you grow, first time football owners, all of that jazz, whatever. I feel like there were certain things like, you know, Todd going into the dressing room. Those are certain things I didn't quite like, didn't quite sit right with me. But of course, he appreciated that even that was a bit too much involvement from him. He'll take a step back. But yeah, like I said, it's great words. It all sounds very colourful, very cheerful, very promising, very bright and happy. But like you said, actions speak louder than words. So it's nice that they're at least appreciating that this isn't up to standard, and it's not like they've just gone, oh, well, yeah, well, things just haven't quite worked out in it. We'll go to next season. It's good that they appreciate and realise that this is just in nowhere near going to be accepted by any Chelsea fan. Like, yeah, okay, the season was absolutely dreadful. It's in the bin, but, you know, you can't afford to have a season like that again. You know, no way. Things have to improve. Things have to get better. So, yeah, like you said, it's nice. It's nicely written. I mean, it's almost like artificial intelligence wrote it. So beautifully written. But no, it's great. Obviously, the women's team was praised. They've been phenomenal this season again. So credit is deserved there as well. So yeah, like you said, I'm not quick to judge ownership just yet. It's too early to do that. It's just been one season. Obviously, it's trial and error. You learn and you grow. So I trust that the right decisions will be made over the summer. Of course, we're going to judge that with the transfers we make, how we approach negotiations, bids, talks, all of that jazz. So yeah, I feel like this is where change starts now in summer. And then you've obviously got pre-seasons, then you got with Poch. And then obviously when the season resumes, the new season starts, then we'll actually be able to start judging the owners properly.
No, I agree. By the way, Mum, stop messaging me, telling me to stop saying what not. Have I been saying what not too much, people? I don't think I have. Anyway, yeah, at least Mum's tuning in. Thanks, Mum. Yeah. Have I been saying what not loads?
I don't know. I say you know a lot, so I don't know. I probably
well, do you know what?
Know quite a bit.
Mum, you don't have to. If you're fed up of me saying what not, you can just click off or just leave it on. Actually, no, leave it on, but you can go and do something else if it's boring and I'm saying what not too much. But yeah, on that note, I think it seems like a good point to round out. Been going a while, covered a lot of major things. As always, people, thank you so much for tuning in. It's greatly appreciated. Appreciate each and every single one of you. You know, it's nothing without you guys tuning in, so it makes it a lot easier for myself. So, and it's always good fun interacting. So thank you so much, as always, guys. Please make sure you smash the likes on the way out. Please subscribe to the channel as well. And guys, I'll be back tomorrow with another daily transfer update. See what news comes there. Oh, by the way, people, make sure also, guys, you subscribe to Nina's channel. I'll pop the link in the chat now as well. So make sure you click on that, subscribe to the channel, help her out. You know, if you like what we've been discussing here, there'll be more of that on there. And if you like me, guys, which if you're tuning in, I think you probably do. If I'm not being too big-headed on that one, like I sometimes go on there as well. So that's another reason to subscribe, guys. So make sure you do. I've dropped the link in the chat. Make sure you click on it and go and help her out. All right. So some great stuff on there. So make sure you do that. I'll be back tomorrow with more news. And guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Up the Chelsea. Catch you tomorrow.